national islands, not all owned by the British, which there are a lot of islands, so I found some random ones up in Antarctica and all sorts of different places. But these are just as a benchmark, just for you to work through. But you get to choose where you want to go. So that's what I want you to do in the beginning, is not necessarily choose the islands that are here, choose your own islands. So the first stop is in Hawaii, and it's give yourself permission to know you matter. And that is the self-worth and the self-esteem portion of the journey. There's no way anybody can give themselves permission to do anything in life if they don't think they matter. You matter just as much as anybody else. We all matter just as much as the person sitting next to you, just as much as the politicians we may look up to, or the movie stars we look up to, or some people that we look down to. We matter, and they matter. Everybody matters just the same. And I think that's the first step of the permission journey, to know that you matter. So that goes hand in hand with the whole concept, the underlying concept of the book, that it is the quiet side of empowerment. I think there's lots of really great whiz-bang stuff out there, and a lot of people have, Tony Robbins, fantastic. There's some really great stuff out there, but it's really out there, whiz-bang. And I think there's a lot of people that want to do this kind of work from the inside. They don't want people to know necessarily what's going on. They want to change on their own time. And in time, I will say that people see the change in you. So, but first of all, I definitely wanted to write this book because I saw my clients who were incredibly successful, as it were, in that they were wealthy and they had good jobs and they'd gone to good schools, but they weren't living their life for themselves. They had done exactly what their family had wanted them to do. They had done what their socioeconomic background had dictated that they do. And yes, they were successful, but they weren't living their own true lives. They were living for other people. And so, and these were men in their 50s that I work with in the UK. So it's all encompassing. It's not just the weak or navel-gazing people that do personal development. So, and I definitely wanted to get that across in this book, and that's why I've sort of made a point of sharing my story and sharing some of the stories of my clients that I think are relevant, and I hope very much that people will see bits of themselves in it so they know they're not alone. Because this is a big thing of mine, that people understand they're not alone and they have people to help them. But at the end of it all, we are personally responsible for our own lives. We're responsible for everything we think, feel, and do. People can be mean. They really can. But we get to decide how we react to that. So, the second leg of the journey is give yourself permission to know what you care about. And this is values. So in coaching and therapy, we talk a lot about values. And I have honestly got to say that for a very long time, I said, oh yeah, I know what my values are. And I didn't. And I just didn't, but you were supposed to know. And somehow, somewhere down the line, we're supposed to know what our values are, but somewhere we don't work on it. So that's what I work with my clients on a lot, is values and figuring out what your values are. So for me, one of my main values is communication. I don't care what you tell me, but just tell me. If it's bad news, that's okay. But I just want to know where I stand. And if I can't really work with anybody if I don't have open lines of communication. So in the book, there are exercises, quite extensive exercises, in figuring out what your values are. And I think this helps clients, this has helped clients of all ages, from 17 to 72. So, and it's all of a sudden, it's a new way to think. And it's also a way to have a roadmap. So you have a decision that you want to make, and you think, okay, but I don't really know if that's good for me. But then when you have your values, your 5 top values, you say, okay, is this in line with my values? Am I going to have autonomy? Say, for instance, it's a new job. Am I going to have autonomy? That's on number 1 on my list. Is it in this job? No. You can't take that job unless you understand that you are going to be micromanaged. So does that make sense? So it's being responsible for where you are going in your own life and understanding what that is. So once you've found out your own values, you're going to be really good at finding out what other people's values are. And that's a really good way to influence and communicate. So more on that later. Third leg of the journey is give yourself permission to take back your life. And this is the chapter of personal responsibility. Personal responsibility is sort of a dirty word in a lot of self-help arenas. There are no books out there called How to Make Myself Personally Responsible. Because until we understand that's what we have to do, it's difficult to find, to know that that's what we have to do. So personal responsibility is not playing the blame game. So we've all had dreadful things happen to us. And we've all had people do dreadful things to us. But that doesn't have to follow us for the rest of our lives. We can choose how we react to it, and we can choose how we move forward. And we can choose how it's influenced our life for the better. And I know that's really hard to do. And there's been some egregious things that have happened to people. But what choice do we have but to move forward in our own light and in our own strength? So that's that chapter. Give yourself permission to take back your life. Now, thing is, you might not all need to do every chapter. That's the thing. You might not need every skill. But it's good to have the framework, and sometimes you go through the chapter walking slowly. And sometimes you can take the plane really fast. You know, supersonic jet plane, because you know it. But it all ties in together. So the next chapter is give yourself permission to be brave. And the brave chapter is about understanding your fears, because we all have them. And we all worry about what other people think, or if we're not going to succeed, or if we're going to do something wrong. I mean, today, over there, I ripped my trousers on the bookshelf, and I'm like, oh, what am I going to do? Sew it up, get a new pair? What am I going to do? Oh, fear, what will people think? What will people think? Well, you can't see my underwear, you know, so it's just what it is. But I was so fearful that I had to tell you now. So, so in case you see the rip in my trousers. But that's a really sort of basic example. But we all have fears in life, especially around what other people will think. And I think as soon as we clear ourselves up of that, the freedom that ensues is limitless. And I must say, I've noticed a cultural difference between the UK and the US in this arena. The English don't care as much what you think about them. they just don't. And sometimes that's rather startling. But maybe it's growing up in Southern California, or I don't know. I did very much care more about what people thought of me here than I do in England. And I think through personal development and some of my work, that shift has happened and the freedom is immense. And that's why I've written this book, because I want to share some of my education, some of the things I've experienced, some of the wonderful people that have come across my path. I want to share that with other people. And I'm going to need you, because I can't do this all on my own, to share it with other people too. This is a positive way of living, and a whole way of living, and a free way. And that's what's important. So the next chapter and the next leg of the journey is give yourself permission to be happy, which is all about mindset and shifting the mindset, which is actually quite easy to do. I know it sounds really hard, and I have clients that say, well, I just can't be happy. I just don't want to. And so there we go. Give yourself permission to be happy. Sometimes people don't give themselves permission to be happy because it's not cool, or they don't want to look weak for being happy. You wouldn't believe some of the things. But when you're happy, when you go out of your way to look at things in a positive way, more positive things are going to come your way. And I can guarantee that. So the next leg of the journey is give yourself permission to have healthy relationships. And I think we land in the Maldives for this one. So, which wouldn't we all love to? You know, one of these days I'm going to go to all the islands and do a little speech from each island, so video or whatever. Although some of them I don't want to go to. So healthy relationships, this is all, a lot of people don't even know what a healthy relationship means. What does that look like to you? So that's what that question I asked you in the beginning. What does a healthy relationship look like to you? Because sometimes we say, we want to have healthy relationships, and if only they could do this, good luck trying to get anybody to change. But what does that look like, a healthy, and what do you look like in that healthy relationship? So that's what that chapter is all about, and we go into more detail to do with values and how to identify other people's values and how to communicate with them within their value system. So, and then we have give yourself permission to know your dream team. Now this is a really special one to me, and I see a lot of people from SC here. I used to work at USC in admission with quite a few people. Yeah, look at that light on. SC near and dear to my heart, and really it was someone I worked with at SC, a man named Joe Allen, who was the vice provost for admission and enrollment services. He was an amazing man. Really was one of the people that turned USC around, and is the university is enjoying its notoriety, as it were, because of this gentleman. And I went to Egypt on my honeymoon, and I got sick. I got really sick, and so I was flown back, and I had to go to the hospital, and they said, good news, bad news, you have there's something in your brain, but we don't know what it is. So, I'm like, okay. Long and the short of it, after 2 years, I was diagnosed with MS. But in the beginning, we didn't know what it was, and I was sick. I couldn't hold my head up. I couldn't walk. I couldn't feed myself. And so I was at home, and Joe called me. And this is December the 11th, which is one day after the application deadline for USC. He calls me up and he says, I'm going to come and visit you. And I said, really, you don't have to, because he was the head guy. It was like 400 people underneath him. And I was just, you know, no one really. I was no one. And so he said, no, I'm coming. I said, but don't you have other things to do? No. So he came, and he sat with me for 4 hours one Friday afternoon. And I thought, why is he staying so long? Anyhow, when he left, I was exhausted. But in that moment, I thought, I must be worth something if he stayed that long. Now, I'd probably been shown before, but I had never really believed it or understood it or felt it like that. So he would definitely be on my dream team. And dream team members are people that have believed in you in the past. And I knew how important they were when I was feeling really low. I just moved to London, and I wrote a list of all the people, because I remembered Joe, and I remembered I've got to be accountable to the people that believe in me and that have helped me. And people have. They wouldn't spend their time if they hadn't. And so I remember all the people, and it was loads. I was absolutely gobsmacked. It's like being here today. Every one of you, I feel, believes in me enough to be here. And you have no idea what that means to me. But you know what? All of you have the same amount of people, if not more, on your dream teams. So when you're feeling low and you're feeling like you may not be worth something, or you need a little encouragement, make the list of all those people that have believed in you in the past that you are accountable to. And this isn't to prove something to them or to make them proud of you. This is to honor them for what they have done for you in your life. So that chapter is give yourself permission to know your dream team. And there are 3 different kinds of dream team, and I go through those in the book. Also, you get to be on other people's dream team. It's really important. So I tell the story in the book, and this is so base, but it gives me so much joy when there are tourists in London and they get lost, and you can see them with their map upside down, you know, and looking around, and none of the streets are signposted well around my area. But I will always ask them, can I help you? And they look at me startled, like, what does she want, and grab their handbag close, you know? And so, and then I speak a little pidgin French and a little pidgin Spanish, so we do okay. So I help them, and then they go toddling off in wherever they're going, and it makes me so happy. No matter how upset I am, no matter how late I am, I make it a point, because I want that same person to do the same thing for me when I'm lost in their country. And it makes a big difference. So it's that reciprocal thing. So Dream Team chapter, really important to me. And sometimes I think starting with the Dream Team chapter is a good idea, or making that list, so you understand how important you are and how much you matter to everybody else, including yourself, because that's the ultimate goal. So the last chapter is give yourself permission to dream big and live your life. The thing with dream big is that big can mean whatever that is for you. It doesn't mean climbing a huge mountain. It doesn't mean being a huge business owner, an entrepreneur. It means whatever your dream is. And if that's having a wonderful home with healthy children, that's great. And if it means traveling the world all on your own, so be it. But you get to decide what that big dream is. And so there are some exercises in the book as well about giving yourself permission to dream. Because so many people don't give themselves that permission. They say, why should I do that? I've got so many other things to do. So that's what I really want for the reader, is to give themselves permission. So if I were to ask you right now, what do you want to give yourself permission to do by the end of this week? Just think about it. Because I had to, at one point in my life, give myself permission to have fun. When I was growing up, I would not wear hearts or sparkles or anything because I thought it was frivolous and it wasn't serious enough and it wasn't right for a girl of my background or education or socioeconomic position or whatever. Let it go. Let it go. So anyhow, anybody want to share at all what they might want to give themselves permission to do? See, but that's the thing. I know you don't want to share it with people, and that's why I've written this book, so you can do it quietly until you're ready to share it. Okay, maybe. Fantastic. Fantastic. And so that's working on how you can get to that and who you can go with and what you need to do to put that in place. So, but sometimes people say, I can't even give myself permission for that because how am I going to afford it? Who am I going to go with? You know, and what will people think? You know, maybe not in this situation, but in other situations. But so it's working towards it. Does that make sense? So anyhow, so.
Great. What did Mimi say? We didn't hear what she said.
Oh, I'm so sorry, and I will do this with the questions. She said she wants to give herself permission to take a cruise around the world.
Right.
I mean, that's a big thing. It's not frivolous. That's going to take a lot of planning. But it's worth it if that's what you want to do. Because so many people would stop themselves because they would think so many things would get in the way. And that's why I have written this book, to open up. Yes, Donnie.
My question is, how come many people don't share their permission? They don't share their goals, for example. They're afraid to, share the permission for something, to give permission to something. Like, we are all guarded by something.
Right.